Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, especially after last night's AEW Dynamite. Of course, Dynamite was back on Wednesday nights in its regular time slot of 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And man, was it an action-packed show. There was a lot that went on during last night's show, and a lot of controversial things that happened, a lot of positive things that happened. Of course, as I mentioned, it was the first Dynamite back on the Wednesday night time slot. It was the last Dynamite from Daily's Place until, I guess, August. But AEW is going back on touring. Road Rage is next week, so there is a ton going on in the world of All Elite Wrestling. So let's get straight into the story because we have so much to talk about today, talking about the world of AEW. So let's talk about Jim Ross first. You can see it on the screen. An AEW announcer, legendary professional wrestling announcer Jim Ross, is receiving negative feedback from some fans on social media after another major botch on AEW Dynamite commentary. JR was wrapping up last night's Dynamite broadcast and plugging next week's show when he referred to the show as WWE Dynamite while still on the air on TNT. This is what he said, quote, "Tickets still available at AEWTix.com. Folks, there's nothing in your life that will top seeing a live WWE Dynamite." Now, of course, social media just exploded. Immediately afterwards, fans immediately responded with criticism on social media. Jim Ross himself, he could not address it, so he tweeted and addressed the botch in a tweet and admitted the error. He said, quote, "Yep, I apparently made an untimely error tonight at show's end. No excuses, and I'm not quitting." Now, Busted Open Radio's Dave LaGreca tweeted that mistakes happen and praised JR as the greatest commentator of all time. JR retweeted those comments and added, "Thanks, Dave. It's all on me. No excuses." Now, obviously, a lot of people are talking about this. So let's address it here. First of all, mistakes happen. Mistakes do happen, and I mean, I do 3 videos a day here on the channel, and I talk about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, and sometimes I catch myself making mistakes, but sometimes you make them and you don't even know. You don't even know. Sometimes it's just a slip of the tongue. At the end of the day, it's live television, and like I said, I guess, these things do happen, and it's unfortunate, and sometimes mistakes are made, but look, again, these things do happen, unfortunately, sometimes, and it's one of those things. I think what people will be upset about this is that maybe it's not the first time that it's happened. I mean, again, last night he referred to it as WWE Dynamite, and he's referred to Kenny Omega before as the WWE Champion. I suppose this is a guy that before he moved to AEW in 2019, Jim Ross was with the company of WWE since, 1993? He was there for, over 20 years, and that's a lot of reps. That's a lot of reps of constantly saying WWE, WWE Monday Night Raw, WWE Friday Night SmackDown, WWE WrestleMania. He's the WWE Champion. One could argue he's been doing commentary for AEW for about 2 years now or so, right? Double or Nothing. The first event was in 2019, so he's been doing commentary for AEW for about 2 years now. One would think that he would say AEW, but it's a slip of the tongue, I guess. It's live television. But, Jim Ross still is the greatest commentator of all time. He's the greatest play-by-play guy of all time. There's no doubt about that. I don't think one slip up on Dynamite, one slip up on TNT, or a couple of them when it comes to Kenny Omega, or it comes to, mentioning WWE Dynamite, whatever. There's no question Jim Ross is still the greatest of all time. Is he at his peak? Is he Jim Ross of the Attitude Era? Is he Jim Ross of when Mankind was thrown off the Hell in the Cell? Good God Almighty, that man's been broken in half. All that kind of stuff. As God is my witness, he is broken in half. Is it that Jim Ross right now? The answer is no, and that's unfortunate. That is unfortunate, but that's life. Unfortunately, Jim Ross is not at his peak anymore. And I think if AEW or AEW fans thought they were going to get Jim Ross, Jim Ross of the Attitude Era, Jim Ross of his peak in AEW, then you were probably slightly deluded. Can Jim Ross still call pro wrestling? Of course he can. Of course he can, and he still obviously has the desire to do it. He mentioned it about when he was signed by AEW. It was the desire of, I'm getting my jersey back and getting back in the game. I still feel like I can do this. I still feel like I can contribute at a high level. And he can. He can still contribute at a high level, but if Jim Ross truly was able to do play-by-play, and he was the Jim Ross of 1997, 1998, 1999, whatever, the Attitude Era Jim Ross, if it was that version of Jim Ross that AEW were getting, they wouldn't have a 3-man booth because they wouldn't need it. They would be able to do just Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone, or Jim Ross and Excalibur. Tony Schiavone doesn't really do play-by-play that much anymore. He does it for Dark Elevation, and he did it for Dynamite last year, but you can tell even he even he, and he's younger than Jim Ross, but even he realizes, look, the time of me knowing every single move, the time of me knowing every single character, the time of me knowing everything and having my finger firmly on the pulse of pro wrestling has passed. I can offer, color commentary. I can offer character building comments. I can offer and I can put guys over on commentary. I can absolutely do that. I'm Tony Schiavone. I've got a voice. People know who I am. People know Tony Schiavone. People know my commentary. They recognize me from years and years working with WCW and WWE, of course. And that adds a lot of credibility, and that's the role that Jim Ross is in. But it's not the peak Jim Ross right now. That's why Excalibur's on commentary. The reason Excalibur's on commentary for AEW is because he knows all of these moves. He knows all of these moves that Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone don't know. He knows all of these wrestlers that obviously Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone might not know, and that's the situation. That's why they have the three-man booth. I know Jim Ross himself wasn't a fan of the three-man booth at first, but it was necessary. It was necessary for that very reason, because you're not getting peak prime Jim Ross. You're not anymore. Now, do I think he should be taken, I should no longer do commentary? I think that's farcical, frankly. People make mistakes, and he's still Jim Ross. And again, people, you have to realize this. I saw Jericho did that, the return of the Saturday Night Special last weekend, and he spoke about why it was important for him to be AEW World Champion from the outset, because people, when they didn't know a lot about AEW at the time, and there was this discussion, what is AEW, and they needed a recognizable name for people to turn the channel and go, okay, I'm going to watch AEW. I've never seen AEW, I'm going to watch it. It's the same with Jim Ross. People, when they're going, what's this AEW? If you say, well, it's got Cody Rhodes on it, people are going to go, yeah. But if you go, oh, Chris Jericho's the world champion, they've got Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone on commentary, people go, oh, okay, I like Jim Ross, I like Tony Schiavone, I'll watch that, I'll listen to that. That's the reason why they're there, because they have a name value, and people want to tune in to watch them. That's the reason that they're there. That's why Jim Ross is still on commentary today, because he's got that legendary voice, and he's Jim Ross. Damn it, So I don't think he shouldn't be taken off of commentary for anything ridiculous like that, just because he made a mistake. I think there's an argument to say maybe he should do Rampage instead. I think that's maybe a good argument to make, but I don't think that will happen. I can't see that happening. I think they might have just a completely different commentary team for Rampage, to be honest with you. But look, it was an unfortunate mistake, and of course social media wants to jump all over it. I think, again, the reason why I suppose the most egregious part of it is that it's not the first time. It's not the first time that we've seen this Freudian slip from Jim Ross. And it was just the timing of it. It's the last thing people heard as we were going off the air. Literally, the last thing we hear is Jim Ross say WWE Dynamite. I mean, you can't get much worse than that. The last thing you hear, WWE Dynamite. It's like, you could feel the air go out of the room, couldn't you? Of like, man, that was just a bad timing. Bad timing. But, look, it's unfortunate. Mistakes happen. I would love to say it's the last time it will happen, but I don't know if it truly will be, to be honest with you. I could probably see it happening again, if I'm going to be honest. But let's move on. Let's talk about Darby Allin, because Darby Allin's going to be in Jackass. Yes, Darby Allin's going to be in Jackass 4, which is absolutely just a fascinating story. Now, Darby Allin obviously has grown into a major star for AEW. His popularity continues to grow, and he has now been listed as one of the cast members for the upcoming stunt-based movie Jackass 4. Now, the movie was supposed to be released in March of 2021, but got pushed back, of course, due to the pandemic. The new release date is October 22nd, 2021. Now, Darby Allin's fans, of course, are going to be incredibly excited to watch this daredevil perform in a new environment. Of course, there's quite a big skateboard background in that one, because you see that people like Tony Hawk have appeared in it in the past. Even people like Bam Margera had a skateboard background, even though Bam's not actually appearing in the movie. But he isn't the only well-known star on the cast of Jackass 4. Per a film website, Tony Hawk, Matt Hoffman, Shaquille O'Neal, Eric Andre, and Francis Ngannou are all set to make celebrity cameos to keep up with the tradition of previous installments of the movie series. So big news. I mean, and not just for Darby Allin. I mean, because that's going to be a real popular movie. The Jackass franchise is just massive, and I know it's probably not the same with that, not with having Ryan Dunn in there, not having Bam Margera, but that's a big spot. It's a big spot for Darby Allin. It's a big spot for AEW. That's going to be a big movie when it comes out. And to have an AEW wrestler, I don't think he's part of the main cast or anything like that, but to be part of a scene in that movie, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for Darby, and that's a big deal for AEW. So very exciting for Darby Allin. I'm excited to see what he does in that film. I'm a big Jackass fan as well, so that should be a lot of fun. An unfortunate bit of news about Rebel. You would have seen last night that AEW star Rebel has reportedly suffered a serious injury during last night's Dynamite show. She reportedly suffered a kneecap injury. Now, Dynamite saw Rebel and AEW Women's World Champion Britt Baker defeat Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero. The finish saw Baker making Guerrero tap out to the lockjaw submission. At one point during the match, Rebel saved Baker from being pinned by Nyla Rose, sliding in to break up the pin, and apparently injured her leg. Rebel immediately let Rose know something was wrong. Rose helped her move to the ropes, and then Rebel crawled to the corner, and the ringside doctors checked her out as the match continued. After the match ended, she had trouble putting weight on her leg, and the doctors carried her to the back as a Rebel chant from the crowd erupted. Now, in an update, word from Daly's Place in Jacksonville is that Rebel suffered a dislocated kneecap while breaking up the pin. This is according to Fightful Select. As of right now, there are no other details, but Fightful are reporting that Rebel has suffered a dislocated kneecap. But the report did mention that she was in good spirits backstage. Now, the usual recovery time for a dislocated kneecap reportedly is around 6 weeks. I don't know if that's accurate or not. It could be later than that, I think. It's a serious injury. It's too early to know if Rebel was going to miss any ring time, but we should know more after she continues to see the doctor for further evaluation. Now, this legitimate injury comes after Rebel recently used crutches to sell an injury while serving as a key heel character in Britt Baker's push. So horrible, horrible news. You could tell immediately something was wrong last night on Dynamite when it happened, and you know, it's so unfortunate, really, really unfortunate. Dislocated knee, again, that's no joke. So hopefully she recovers soon, and hopefully she can get back in the ring soon. But a horrible, horrible, horrible injury, especially, again, once they're returning to touring. But I guess the positive thing might be is that she doesn't wrestle every week anyway. She's largely at ringside for Britt Baker's matches. So just get the crutches back out and be at ringside, right? I suppose that's possibly a good way to look at it. But yeah, horrible, horrible injury for Rebel to suffer last night. There was an awesome Dynamite tribute package that finished the show last night. Again, it was what Jim Ross's comments followed this. But this week's AEW Dynamite ended with a video package that highlighted AEW's time producing shows at Daly's Place over the last 16 months. Now, the video was titled Thank You Jacksonville and featured the song Celebrate by the Dirty Heads and the Unlikely Candidates, and summarized AEW's run from the early stages of the pandemic last year, you know, when Cody Rhodes was in Daly's Place, an empty Daly's Place with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, and that sort of just bizarre Dynamite that also featured the debut of Mr. Brody Lee and Matt Hardy, and right up until now. Now, of course, AEW will return to the road next week at the James L. Knight Center in Miami, Florida for AEW Dynamite Road Rager. Several wrestlers have reacted to the video online, which was widely praised by fans and wrestlers alike on social media. See, Jim Ross isn't the only one. Former WWE superstar Peyton Royce admitted the package made her tear up. Matt Cardona was happy to see his brief stint in AEW getting featured in the video. Meanwhile, Cody Rhodes, Taz, Ethan Page, Dustin Rhodes, Brandy Rhodes, and several others took to Twitter to react to the video. Peyton Royce said, quote, "Damn, that package made me tear up." Matt Cardona said, "Very cool to be included in this piece of history." Taz said, "Amazing stuff here." Cody just simply said, "Thank you." Brandy Rhodes said, "Unforgettable." Dustin Rhodes said, "To everyone of the extra talent I've gotten to know in the last year, you are awesome, and I appreciate you all. Stay focused and positive on your pro wrestling dream and continue to follow it. I love y'all." Brian Pillman Jr. said, "Thank you, Jacksonville." And Ethan Page said, "AEW, best wrestling in the world." It really was a great video package. If you haven't watched it, I certainly would recommend going to watch it. It was excellent. It was absolutely excellent. And even just seeing like the Brody Lee stuff, whether it was his debut, whether it's his tribute show, all of it was awesome. Absolutely awesome. So credit to AEW for a real fantastic video package. And in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to see the return of Ricky Starks to in-ring action. Because last night on AEW Dynamite, Taz announced that FTW champion Brian Cage will defend his championship against fellow Team Taz member Ricky Starks. The two members have been having issues for several weeks, predating Double or Nothing, and Taz felt like this would help cool things down as their toxic relationship has impacted the group. The match is set for July 14 at Fyter Fest Night 1 in Austin, Texas. This is the first official match for the show. Now, Starks has been out of action since April 21st with a fractured neck in a loss to Hangman Page, and has appeared regularly on television since then, but hasn't actually wrestled any matches. Taz noted during his segment last night that a fully cleared Starks will be ready for the match. I could see Ricky Starks winning That one, I can see Brian Cage. They're teasing Brian Cage turning into a babyface, aren't they? And departing Team Taz. I could see a situation where Team Taz finally turns on Brian Cage and Ricky Starks becomes the FTW champion. And then Brian Cage continues to feud with Team Taz going forward. That's the way I see that one. Great news, obviously, about Ricky Starks. Great to see him back and ready to go. Whenever you hear any kind of neck injury, fractured neck, we did hear at the time that it wasn't a totally serious neck injury, which is a bit of an oxymoron because any neck injury is serious. But the fact that he's going to be returned to action in a couple of weeks' time is excellent news. So I'm excited for that and interested to see how it's going to impact Team Taz going forward. Because as I mentioned, I think Brian Cage isn't going to be part of Team Taz for much longer, I must say. An interesting story about former WWE producer Sanjay Dutt, because Dutt has reportedly joined AEW. Veteran pro wrestler Sanjay Dutt has reportedly signed with AEW. It was noted earlier this week how Dutt left WWE after putting in his notice a few weeks ago. He had been working as a producer since early 2019, but in an update, Dutt was backstage for last night's AEW Dynamite tapings at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, and is reportedly working as a producer. This is according to PW Insider. It is believed that Dutt has signed to work full-time with AEW as a producer. Now, Dutt first began working as a producer for Impact Wrestling back in April 2017. He quietly retired a few years back, but did wrestle a few matches for Impact in GFW in 2017 until an Achilles injury kept him out of the ring. Dutt left Impact for the last time in January of 2019 and went to work for WWE as a producer later that month, but as I mentioned, handed in his notice to WWE a couple of weeks ago and is now working as a producer for AEW. So, a big signing for AEW. I think it's interesting. I've seen a lot of people again talking about, see, he wanted to leave that just toxic environment of WWE and wanted to do this and wanted to do that. I don't even know if it's that. Maybe he just likes the work schedule. You know, it's once a week. Maybe he likes the money. Maybe he's getting paid better money. Maybe it allows him to be closer to his family while still working as a producer. Maybe he realized, you know what, WWE's going back on the road. I don't really want to keep up to that schedule every more of, 2, 3, however many days a week on the road. I don't want to do it. Instead, I want to do 1 day a week on the road for AEW and then be able to go home. I don't blame him. I don't blame him if that's what you want to do. We don't know the situation. I know people are looking at this going, big ow to WWE, big ow, or big win for AEW. It's a guy getting a job. Good for him. Good for him. And I'm sure he'll be a massive asset to the team there at AEW. Now, last night's AEW Dynamite saw a main event between MJF and Sammy Guevara, and what was, to be honest, a fantastic main event. Absolutely was incredible. Absolutely fantastic, incredible main event. I mean, one of my only criticisms of it would be that, and this is just an AEW criticism overall in general, to be honest, is that some of the near falls were just ridiculous. The 630 by Sammy Guevara, that won the match at Stadium Stampede, but MJF kicks out of that, and MJF did a tombstone pile driver off like the second rope to Sammy Guevara, which is terrifying, but he still kicked out. I mean, if there's ever going to be a finish of a match, that should be the finish. I know they tried to play up, going, well, MJF, he hurt his knee. He was favoring his knee. Maybe that's why he couldn't get the pinfall, but I mean, come on. That's just an AEW problem that I have in general. Sometimes you go, right, this has got to be the finish, and then it's not. And then by the time the finish comes, it's kind of deflating because you're like, it could have been about 5 minutes ago because of all the false finishes and all the near falls. But look, that's just me nitpicking. I thought, obviously, excellent main event between Guevara and MJF last night. In the end, though, interference from the Pinnacle, Shawn Spears, and Wardlow turned the match in MJF's favor. Wardlow attacked Chris Jericho, who was on commentary, and Shawn Spears laid Sammy Guevara out with a steel chest shot to the head, allowing MJF to get the win. I've said this time and time again, and I know people will say, but the chair's gimmicked. They're doing it safely, and he got his hands up, and he did this, and he did that, and they file the chair down, and they make sure it's just like a cookie sheet, and, he's not going to be hurt. He doesn't have a concussion. Don't worry, we're bringing chair shots to the head back. It's 2021. Chair shots to the head, irrespective of if the chair's been filed down, irrespective of if the chair's paper thin, irrespective of if he's got his hands up, irrespective of anything. Chair shots to the head shouldn't happen. They have no place in pro wrestling in 2021. How far have we come? What have we lived through? What have we seen as pro wrestling fans and as a fan base and as a fandom and as, even the wrestlers themselves? How far have we come to see that chair shots to the head? We don't need them. We don't need them anymore. We just don't. Now, people will argue, well, if you're going to take those kind of chair shots away, then take away cookie sheets to the head, take away all this kind of shots to the head. Maybe we should take away all those shots to the head. But chair shots to the head, irrespective if you get your hands up, irrespective if they're gimmicked, irrespective of anything, have no place in pro wrestling, even if they're safe. Because what message does it send? It's not a good look. And every single time you see it, as someone that lived through watching that in the 90s and the early 2000s and cringe, and I used to love chair shots to the head. Everyone did, because they were brutal. But the problem was they were real, and the damage they did was real. And people to this day are living with the effects of chair shots to the head. People get concussions all the time in pro wrestling because of bad bumps, because of errant right hands, because of this, because of that. But they're accidents. When you're getting smashed over the head with an object, chances are that's not going to end well. We know too much at this point. We know the science. We know the concussions. And I know people will say, well, Chris Nowinski's worked with AEW and he's given the clear. And there are so many people trying to justify it when there is no justification. Chair shots to the head shouldn't happen. And I know AEW have tried it and tried it and tried it and tried it. And I know so many people go, oh, calm down. And then the justification is, I'm sure Sammy Guevara was fine with it. Like, that means anything. Like, oh, yeah, I'm totally fine. Give me a concussion. That's not his decision to make. Sometimes, like having a referee in the ring, they should realize that, again, you're hurting yourself. You're a danger to yourself. It should be the AEW official to say, in the same vein that if you've got a concussion in the match, the doctor can wave it off and go, no, you're a danger to yourself. Why don't you do that before you're going to get the concussion by having a chair smashed over your head? Chair shots, nope. You can't convince me they have any place in 2021. No place in pro wrestling. Changing subjects, Cody Rhodes and Brandi Rhodes have shared the first image of their first child, Liberty Iris Runnels. They gave the first exclusive images to People magazine. Now, as noted, Brandi gave birth on Friday, June 18. Cody announced that the baby was born at 6 pounds and 12 ounces. Brandi announced yesterday that Friday's issue of People magazine will feature an exclusive photo shoot of the family. She also tweeted a sneak peek photos of the shoot, which you can see on the screen right there. So obviously, congratulations once again to Cody and Brandi Rhodes on the birth of their first child. It was actually Cody Rhodes' birthday. They had a birthday celebration for him after Dynamite last night as well. So happy birthday to Cody Rhodes as well. What a couple of weeks for the American Nightmare. We have some things announced for Road Rager as well, which of course is next week. Multiple matches were announced next week for AEW Dynamite Road Rager at the James L. Knight Center in Miami, Florida. Eddie Kingston and Penta El Zero Miedo defeated the Young Bucks to earn a tag team title shot. That's going to take place next week at Road Rager. Andrade El Idolo will also make his in-ring debut against Matt Sydal. Last week, Andrade went to announce his surprise during Sydal's entrance, but Matt ended up coming out anyways, cutting off Andrade, so that's going to happen. Now, the coffin match was originally scheduled to happen next week between Ethan Page and Darby Allin, but that's been pushed back. Darby Allin came out last night and gouged Page's eyes during a brawl. Page decided to delay the match and force Allin to sign papers that he won't touch Page a week before they have a match, so he's a 100%. Page said if Allin was good, the match might happen at Fyter Fest, but didn't say which nights. I would assume this has something to do with the recent tragedy that happened in Miami, or certainly, you know, there was the building collapse, wasn't there, in Miami, and it's not the right time. It's not the right time to do a coffin match so close when you're in that city. It's poor taste, and it hardly needs to be next week anyway. So I think I credit AEW. I think that's totally the right move, and I think that's a good display of sensitivity, frankly, by AEW. So I think they're right there. We also have some announcements regarding some events of the week of All Out in Chicago in September. During last night's Dynamite, it was announced that 3 shows will take place in Chicago during All Out week. First, AEW Dynamite will take place on Wednesday, September 1st, then AEW Rampage on Friday, September 3rd, and then finally All Out on Sunday, September 5th. Tickets go on sale Friday, July 9th at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. All Out takes place at the Now Arena, formerly known as the Sears Center Arena in Chicago. Matches have yet to be announced, but Tony Khan previously said a women's casino battle royale would be scheduled for the upcoming pay-per-view. So it's amazing to see the growth, isn't it? It was amazing to see the growth of AEW, considering that, you know, they had their pay-per-view All Out a couple of years ago, and now they're going to have 3 events that week. They're going to have Dynamite, Rampage, and it's great to see. And it's going to be an AEW week in Chicago. How exciting is that? You know, WWE is not the only company that can take over cities now. You know, they do the same for like WrestleMania, or they used to do it for SummerSlam. It's in the Brooklyn. When it was in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, they would have Raw, SmackDown. Now SummerSlam, NXT TakeOver, all at the Barclays Center Arena. And now, you know, AEW can do it for All Out Week as well, which is very exciting. Very exciting. So very exciting for All Out in September. Finally, Eddie Kingston has responded to the criticism he received for his post-Dynamite promo where he bashed WWE. He recently appeared on WrestleZone's Two Dynamite Dudes with Attitude podcast to discuss said promo. Now, he said, let's get this question out of the way. Let's all calm down. You think I'm going to bury the locker room that I work for? No. Plus, I love our locker room. I love AEW. What do you want from me? They're paying me. They're putting me on national television after it will be 20 years in October. Of course I'm going to rah-rah AEW. Relax, relax. I expect people from the other joint, if they're allowed to mention our names, they'll probably do the same thing because, you know what I mean? They want their home team to win. It's just like the NFL, Major League Baseball, man. You want to go with your home team. AEW's my team. That's my squad. And I think that's what I said. That's exactly what I said. What do you expect? What do you expect? And it was to send the crowd home happy. And frankly, it's something that social media loves. They love the drama. They love the fight, rah, rah, rah. And Bully Ray's comments I thought were ridiculous considering when he made his debut in Impact Wrestling, he bashed WWE. And he made his debut in ECW as Mongo, which was a bash at WCW, which he never worked for. I know that wasn't his call, but still. Pro wrestling companies bash each other. Superstars bash each other. That's the life, you know? Deal with it. And it's not a big story, so I totally agree with Eddie Kingston. But as always, guys, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Get the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.